Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Aquarian Insights. And today I am very excited to be here with David Oates. And David is the discoverer and founder of reverse speech, something that I consider to be a completely revolutionary discovery that sheds light on human communication, consciousness, and the power of the subconscious mind. Welcome today, David. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I always enjoy talking about my work.
Yeah, and I think to start off, just for those folks that aren't familiar, can you tell us a little bit about what reverse speech actually means and sort of how you came
Right,
upon it?
sure. Well, look, for those of you who are old enough, you'll remember the controversy of satanic messages in rock and roll. It goes back to the late 70s and early 80s. And
Hmm.
there was a big craze back then. People were playing rock and roll records backwards and hearing strange messages, and fundamentalist Christians said it was all the work of the devil. And so that's really most of what the public's had contact with. So my research started in '83, looking into these backward messages in rock and roll, and I originally went around it because I thought it was a whole lot of rubbish, But I'm an audio guy. I've been a ham radio operator most of my adult life. So I got a good ear for audio, and I started playing these records backwards, and I go, "Oh, I can hear that." And I looked further and I could hear others, and I go, well, this is really quite strange. How are they getting there? And anyway, so to cut a long story short, thus started the research project. And then one day I accidentally stumbled across the phenomenon in normal human speech. It's sort of one thing to hear it in rock and roll, but to suddenly hear it backward messages in speech that were quite clear and coherent.
Right.
And I started looking at speech, and I was stunned. They were everywhere. It was on politics and friends and family. And anyway, so to condense all this down, in 1987, I wrote my theory, and the theory states that language is bilevel, forwards as well as backwards. As the human brain is putting the sounds of speech together, it's doing it in such a way that we're saying two things at once. One forward from the conscious and the other in reverse from the unconscious. So, quite literally, I am proposing that this is another human sense. It's another form of communication. As the brain is putting the sounds of speech together, it's doing it in such a way that we're saying two things at once. Forwards, which is obviously how I'm talking to you now,
Right.
and in reverse, which is the unconscious speaking. So, the way it works in practice, you take any section of speech. Well, it depends on the conversation. We can get into that as time goes on. But
Mhm.
if you run speech backwards about once every 20 or 30 seconds, you're going to hear this really clear phrase. And I'll be playing them for you. You'll be amazed how clear they are. I'm surprised no one discovered this before me, quite frankly. And and it's what we are thinking and feeling, both on the conscious and the unconscious level. So it's a new theory about language. That language is bi-level, and who we really are is speaking in reverse, conscious as well as unconscious. Was that too long-winded?
No, I think that's perfect, David. I think that realization is so important, and especially for me, kind of what I do, helping folks overcome different health challenges. The
Right.
power of language has become so apparent, and utilize things like German new medicine and other variations of that to heal the body. And so when I encountered your work, I was just like, holy smokes, this is a whole other level of understanding to bring light to, in my work, bring light to what folks are actually suffering or what they're actually thinking about
Uh,
when they're
oh, well,
communicating things.
yeah. Well, that's exciting. That's where I apply most of
Hmm.
my work. Um, I've been in practice for 35 years now with reverse speech, and I use reverse speech solely for working with clients, and do the same sort of things you do, I guess. But the reverse speech gives me an added advantage of really tapping into the unconscious, and the unconscious can give you advice and a guidance, and actually, I tell you what, that's actually a good point to jump off and play you some reversals so you can hear
Perfect.
what we're talking about. And I'm going to go to my client files,
Hmm.
Uh, there's one I want to play you.
I
Where
have
are
to
we?
say, the first time I heard it, David, and just with your software, what you post on YouTube, I think is brilliant. But the first time I heard it, it gave me chills down my spine.
I know it does have that effect on people.
Oh my
All
goodness.
right, this is a. I like this example. This is a really clear. This is a clear example of reverse speech,
Hmm.
and it shows how it can be used. This is a woman who came to me with money issues. Okay,
Okay.
and she's had money issues all her life. She'll have a whole lot. She'll spend it. She'd go up and down. Okay, so here she is talking about her money issues.
She and I need to work this issue out, but it started to bring up all my money fears and stuff. And the thing is if I know I start sourcing fear again, I'm gonna go way downhill.
Want to do that. Okay, brought up all my money issues again. Okay,
Mhm.
and I'm going to run it backwards at 3 speeds. First of all, I'll play you the clip isolated, and then I'll run the whole track backwards. But
Okay.
here's the clip isolated, and she's saying, "Work on my grief."
Work on my grief.
Mm.
Work on my grief.
Quite clear.
Work on
Yeah.
my grief.
And so that's her unconscious coming in and saying, okay, in order to work with my money issues, you've got to tackle grief issues that I have. And it opened up a whole line of therapeutic questioning. It got back to her father growing up as a child. Father gave her a lot of money, and then he disappeared for weeks on end. And she, anyway, but what reverse sleep was able to do was able to pinpoint a precise reason for her money problems, and uh, using regular therapy, who knows how long you could take to get that. But let me run the whole lot backwards,
Yeah.
and you'll hear how it just jumps up out of the gibberish.
Work on my grief. He's so nothing else is saying it.
Do you hear how it jumped up out of the gibberish there?
Yeah, yeah, it's very clear. It just pops out.
Yeah, so that's a classic example. Shows how I use it in therapy.
Hmm.
Uh, Let me get another simple therapeutic example up. Um, I've got, I've literally got hundreds of thousands of examples in my computer. So, where's the one I'm looking for? Uh, no, of course, when you want it quickly, you can't find it, can't
Oh,
you?
of course.
Let's just go back. Here it is. Got it. All right, this is a woman who had constant problems with relationships.
Okay.
She'd been engaged 3 times. Oh, no, not 3 times, 5 times. Sorry.
Wow.
And uh, the relationship would go for a few weeks, a few months, and then it would break up.
Mm.
So here she is talking about it.
The night that it happened, my friend Phil was just telling me about, what we believe, we then create, and it just shifted, and that's when I just.
You're talking about, what we believe we create. Do I believe that I'm got issues in the
Mhm.
relationship? And we found a reversal here that brought tears. I mean, this reversal, when I played it to her, she just broke down in tears. Says backwards, I've been molested.
I've been molested.
Wow.
I've been molested.
You hear that there?
Yeah.
I've been molested.
Now let's play the whole lot backwards, and then I'll tell you the story.
No, no. No, no, it's just now you can maybe feel it. You already. I've been molested, so I've never felt. I've
Wow.
never had it.
Did you hear it jump up out of the gibberish there?
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. Okay, so I played her the reversal and she just broke down. She'd been molested very regularly by a family member for many years.
Mhm.
She'd never told anyone about it, ever. She felt such shame about it. But it was that event that created these series of broken relationships. Now
Yeah.
she would have never told me about it either. And so reverse speech was able to come in and say, bang, this is the what you got to work on. This is the
Mhm.
reason. And it does that time and time and time and time again. It just takes my breath away. It really is a direct tap into the unconscious. And look, okay, I use it in therapy, but it's got so many other uses. Working with children. Oh, that's therapy again, isn't it? So, as you can see, I'm 80% oriented towards therapy. I actually do it a lot in politics. I do quite a few radio shows and podcasts, and they are what latest conspiracy theories. So I do that as well. But
Yeah, yeah,
therapy's my
I
first.
think the politician and public figure thing I think is very interesting to
Uh-huh.
see kind of what actually comes out. But for me, I'm in the same boat as you, just with therapy, helping kind of real folks get through things. And do you find in a therapeutic session like the root of the issue always comes out with reverse speech clearly, or is this, I know you have some sets of
Mm,
metaphors and things that our
yeah.
brain uses? Does it come out clearly or is it more metaphorical?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. It's probably um when you're working in a therapeutic situation, you're working with a lot of metaphors.
Mhm.
Yes, and it can get very cryptic and very metaphoric. And the two examples I've chosen to play you are very obvious,
Right.
plain ones. It is not always that obvious.
Yeah.
And sometimes I might have to do two or three different recordings.
Mhm.
Um, However, the metaphors are usually there, and they're usually well. Look. It took me years to work out what all the metaphors meant.
Of course.
Um, they tell us how the personality and behavior is structured. Um, if I can't find an actual event that has caused the problem, the metaphors themselves will show me what's wrong with the unconscious. Um, I've developed oh gee whiz, we're getting into deep theory very quickly.
Sorry.
I've developed a whole therapeutic technique for working with reverse speech,
Yeah.
and it uses the metaphors. My theory is that the unconscious thinks in pictures or metaphor, and all of these metaphors they are responsible for specific functions within the human mind.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go slowly and cautiously here. Uh, I know what. I'll play an example. There we go.
Yeah.
We'll use an example. That's the
Perfect.
best one. Okay. Metaphor, metaphor, metaphor. Where are we? Uh, this is what I'm looking for. All right. This reverses on me talking to a client.
Okay.
So here's me speaking forwards.
You strike me as a very enthusiastic guy. I mean, certainly the time we've been together and you've got all full of ideas. Is this latest? Is this just a latest idea? Is it just all froth and barbel, or do you really want to get out?
As you can hear, I was a little bit younger back then. And but we get a very clear reversal that says, "See the wolf fallen in the lake."
See, a little fall over in the See, a little fall over in the
Okay, so that's quite clear. And I'll run the whole lot backwards for you too. So here's the track backwards.
You're going to read all about the partial sickness. You know, I said out little sisters, I said out sisters, see, a little fall over in the Yeah, very much, and listening hard.
You hear how that just jumps up
Yeah.
out of the gibbets there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so what does that tell us? Well, I have learnt that wolf is a metaphor for drive and motivation.
Mm.
Lake is a metaphor. Well, lake is part of the water metaphor group, which is emotions.
Mhm.
So this guy, the guy came to see me, was the salesman who's just suffered from a nervous breakdown,
Mm.
and he lost all his motivation. He couldn't get out. He couldn't go and see his clients. And my reversal tells him, see the wolf fallen in the lake. Now, what that means is that his motivation is drowning in a sea of emotions. I mean, you think when you're depressed, it's very difficult to motivate yourself.
Of course.
But this gave me the actual two metaphors that cause the problem. So I've developed a hypnotic technique which I call a meta walk. It's a combination of two words, metaphor and walkabout. I got the word walkabout from the Australian Aboriginals walking through the outback on their
Mhm.
walkabout. So meta walk. And I will ask my client to visualize a wolf. Now, one of the most amazing things about reverse speech metaphor work is that the clients will, in the majority of cases, not always, but in the majority of cases, they will picture the metaphor exactly the way the reversal described it. And it's uncanny the way that happens.
Mm.
Um, and so this guy's got a wolf who's splashing around the lake and he can't get out. Okay. So what I do is I change the metaphor and I will help the wolf out of the lake, back standing on solid ground again.
Mhm.
And just by changing that, now this is a very simple example, and it gets a little bit more complicated
Yeah, of
when you're
course.
working with it in practice. But by changing the metaphor, we change the behavior and we change the personality. So my approach is let's find out how your unconscious is structured. The reverse suites will give me the metaphors.
Mhm.
Then, uh, then we design a meta walk. That in itself is a complicated process,
Yeah, of
but
course.
um, they normally last 15, 20 minutes. Um, they're very powerful journeys. Clients tell me they see the pictures vividly. Often they will see them before I suggest them. Sometimes they'll be ahead of me, which if if you think about it, if it really is a voice of the unconscious that I've discovered, which I believe it is,
Mhm.
then it's logical that they should see the pictures easily and they should be ahead of me because all I'm giving back to them is what they have given to me in pictorial form and
Right.
changing the pictures as pictures around.
Yeah.
So that's how I applied in therapy. And um, I've actually just finished writing a book all about reverse speech metaphors. It's quite a large book, about 100. I think it ended up with 150,000 words or something like that. So
Oh, wow.
that's hopefully going to be out in a couple of weeks. It's in the editors now. And it'll be up on Amazon with all my other books. So yeah.
No, that's incredible. And I think that example was so interesting to me too, because on one level, you and I are speaking to each other right now, but on
Uh-huh.
another level, our subconscious are communicating with each other right now too, which
You're
as
right.
a physician or a therapist is very, very interesting to think about. And
Yes.
very truthfully, very, very exciting too. And to have tools to be able to walk people through these things and change them on the level of symbols, I think is very,
Uh-huh.
very powerful and probably much more powerful than, kind of doing talk therapy and kind of all of those
Yeah.
things. I think it's incredible work.
I absolutely believe that to be the case. Of course, of course, that's what I do. I should believe it, But yeah, look, I think, look, it's logical. If you want to change the unconscious, you got to use the language of the unconscious. If you want to talk, you got to use the language of the unconscious, and that's what I do. They're in a light hypnotic state. It's you could call it a guided visualization journey, but it's a lot more powerful than that.
Hmm.
And we take us through this wonderful journey through the unconscious. And, I get amazing changes. Look, I'm not successful all the time. There's some people I mean, we all have our failures, but but
Of
but
course.
but my success rate is pretty good, and with the clients I work with. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And one of the most enlightening things for me looking through all of your videos and listening to, all of the things that you recorded and put on the internet is how, and this might be a little bit of a deep conversation, but how clear sort of the concepts of good versus evil come out in our subconscious.
Oh. Yeah, you know what? It's interesting you should say that. I'll play you some examples about that.
Yeah.
It's really it's an aspect of reverse speech I really only embraced in the last few years. When I first started, I was really fighting against a major, what's the word I'm looking for? It's gone now. Bias, prejudice, because
Yep.
it was all satanic. But and so people
Mhm.
were saying, "Oh, this is satanic and spiritual." So when I started, I really divorced myself from the whole spiritual aspect of it, and I was just trying
Mhm.
to get it accepted as another form of language, another form of communication.
Yeah.
But once you get into reverse speech and you start to learn how it functions and how it operates, and you learn its language, yes, it is very spiritual. It talks in terms of light and dark. It talks about God. It talks about the soul.
Mhm.
Talks about the endlessness of life. It's a very spiritual language, and I've recently come to call it the language of the heart.
Mhm.
Is some of my latest understandings of it. Here, let me play reverse. We'll get into some of the spiritual stuff, but let me play you a really simple reversal.
Yeah.
This is a client who this shows how it's the voice of the heart.
Mhm.
What this is of his spirit talking to him. He's
Mhm.
got financial problems. He's talking to his tape recorder about his financial issues.
Does it further for us to put more energy and money and effort?
And backwards he says, "You're frightened. Lean on me."
You're frightened. Lean on me.
You're frightened. Lean on me.
And that's his spirit talking to him and saying, "Hey, I know you're frightened.
Yeah.
Lean on me. Trust in me." So
Yeah.
it's just comes out with some wonderful messages. Let me see, we're getting into the spiritual. Let me go to I got files on light, God, Jesus, and heaven, and let me go to my
Well, and the
all
interesting
right.
thing too, David, I think a lot of folks
Yes.
listening to this will say, well, if you're of a certain denomination or if you're Christian, those things will come out. But have you seen this across the board with people of different belief systems?
Yes, I have seen it across the board with different belief systems. Um, I've actually got quite a few clients who are Hindu,
Hmm.
um, and uh, they will have more Eastern metaphors in their language than a
Hmm.
normal Western man will have, but they will still have Western metaphors like Jesus and the light of God. Well, oh no, that's a Hindu concept too, isn't it? Um, I know the question you're asking me, and I don't totally have the answer.
No, that's okay. That's just curiosity on my part,
Yeah.
thinking,
Okay. Like here's a classic Western reversal. Listen to
yeah.
this.
I've been doing hypnotherapy and regression on other people in the past, and to actually have it done, it's really nice. And I'm so susceptible to.
And she says, the sun, he lives in my heart.
And the sun he lives in the heart.
Mhm.
The sun he lives in my heart.
Oh, it's a wonderful reversal, isn't it? I mean, it
Yeah,
really
it's
is.
beautiful.
Yeah. And then we've got another one about the heart. I've only got a very short section of the thoughts on this, unfortunately. Oh, hang on. Whoops, lost it. Here we go.
Does it, does it, like,
Yep, I need light. Starts in the heart. Oops,
does it,
sorry, I did it wrong. Here we go.
yep, it's like, it's like, yep,
Hmm.
like, it's like,
They're the type of spiritual reversals you're talking about, aren't they?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. I got files and files and files of them. Um, I believe, this is
Hmm.
my own personal belief, but I believe, look, reverse speech offers society many things.
Hmm.
Uh, when I first came to America in '89, I lived in America for 10 years in the 1990s. When I first came to America in '89, I met an author named Dr. Larry Dossey. He's well known, you may know him, or of him.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "This may be one of the most concrete proof we have yet of the existence of an unconscious mind." And
Very
I
good.
actually go one step further than that. I believe that it's the most concrete proof yet of the existence of a spiritual realm. And
Yes.
look, I don't think it's necessarily endorses Christianity or pseudo Judeo-Christian values, uh, although they are talked about a lot. See, what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to get. I don't want to put myself in a box of preaching Christianity. So
No. I understand that. But in that, just in your experience, and all our understanding that our experience is colored by who we see as practitioners,
that's
um,
true.
have there been sort of perennial things that have come through with the majority of people, or is the experience very different in the language that they use? Or is Jesus always, for example, is Jesus always Jesus, or are there other words or metaphors used for God?
Well,
Or
Jesus also appears as a shepherd, and
Mhm,
Yeshua, he goes by other
mhm,
names. Jesus is a common theme. The Judeo-Christian beliefs is a common theme.
mhm,
However, I work in Western civilization, so
right,
if you went to Japan or China, I mean, would you find a whole different theme? I don't know.
right,
I
yeah,
only speak English,
yeah,
so um, um, I try not to box myself into Christianity, but I do say Reverse Speak talks about the soul. It talks about the human soul. It talks about the endlessness of life. It talks about the existence of God, however you understand him as being. Reverse Speak describes him as a being of great love, um, which is a wonderful thing. Well, let me see if I got a versal about God is love. Where are we? I have to go to my God file for that. Um, oh, hang on, where are we? Where's my God file? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, God. God. Got some wonderful reversals here. Uh, um, oh, here we go. Here's a reversal about God. Although this is from a minister, the late Jerry Falwell.
The 7-year tribulation must transpire here, the 1,000-year reign of Christ, in the which I shall be your boss for 1,000 years, Doctor.
And he says, the will of God's reign is love.
Develop God's reign is love. Develop God's reign is love.
Yeah, okay. So
yeah.
that's also a very common theme. And then you get some wonderful reversals like this one. This is a young child. Listen to this. Oh, can you hear this?
Yep.
Yeah, and here he says, God made me. Oh, sorry. Here we go.
Mm,
Out of the mouth of babes, hey?
yeah,
That's
that's amazing.
yeah. So yeah, look, Reverse Speak talks about God a lot.
Hmm.
It talks about the soul. The soul is probably one of the most common metaphors.
Hmm.
I happen to believe it's more than a metaphor. I
Right.
believe it's a fact.
Yeah.
And Reverse Speak discusses it a lot. It talks about the soul as being diseased or well or
Hmm.
damaged. Um, Let me play you a reversal on me that really hit home to me about the nature of the soul. In when I left the United States in 19, I'm giving a bit of background information here while I
Yeah,
pull this up.
of
I
course.
left the States in 19, '99. I was literally chased out. I was sued and I was stalked. I had death threats and
Oh my
my
goodness.
kids beaten up at school, and because they were my kids, 'cause I was well known all over America back then.
Hmm.
And then I left America a bit of a mess, and then I was home for a couple of months,
Hmm.
and my son was murdered.
Oh
And
my goodness.
so I was in a very bad way. I was depressed, grief-ridden, and I'm talking to some students of mine about this grief and
Yeah.
why is it so strong? And in this one section forwards, I say, well, I'm very sensitive to energy. Maybe that's why. So here's the forwards.
Could be. Yeah, could be. Well, see, I'm very sensitive to energy. Ultra sensitive.
Now I want you to listen to the emotion in this reversal. I say backwards, my soul give the pain.
My soul give the pain.
Mm.
My soul give the pain.
Hear the cry, the
Yeah.
anguish in, and my soul was literally in pain.
Yeah.
Uh, my son had been murdered. Um, I'd been kicked out of America, and
Yeah.
I was hurting inside. But that reversal really touched my heart, and it made me realize reverse speech. It describes the soul as being alive and living and real. It can be happy, it can be sad, it can be
Yeah.
angry, it can be full of joy. And reverse speech talks about the state of the soul, and I work with the soul in a lot of my metaphor journeys because it's such a common theme in reverse. So,
And I
am
just
I
think,
going off track here? Is this all interesting
no,
for you?
no, David, this is beautiful. And thank you for sharing a bit of your story because I think this is just such an important thing for people to conceptualize now. And to me, with reverse speech, we kind of have the proof that something is communicating that this exists and this is a real thing. And it feels like we do and adjusts accordingly. And the thing that strikes me in several of your examples that I've listened to and ones you've shared today, including your own right now, is the subconscious mind is not just the words, but it's the emotion behind the words as well, which is the
That's
thing
right.
that really caught me off guard when I first started listening to this.
Yeah, a lot of people have well up in tears hearing reversals.
Of course.
Some people can't listen to it. It's too much. I have some
Yeah.
people when I do my podcast, they say, "Look, I turn the sound down and just watch what you say. Just watch
Mm.
the subtitles on the screen."
Hmm.
I believe it touches the heart. I believe you have that emotion because you are hearing the heart speak. It's that heart connection. That
I definitely agree. And like I said earlier, the first time I listened to it, it was so startling because it sent chills down my spine because it's like I had heard a
yeah,
language for the first time, but I understood it. It's like hearing
yeah,
Japanese for the first time and knowing what the person is saying. It was this
yeah.
incredible revelation within me, and I just that's part of the reason we're talking today. But yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I think one of the interesting things too is from your examples that you've shared is this can be used on an individual level, but then you can also use this as sort of a collective unconscious as well. And you have lots of
Oh,
examples showing, multiple
yes.
people saying the same thing about world events and things that are
Right.
perhaps happening. And I
Yeah.
find that fascinating. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Well, reverse speech taps into Carl Jung. I believe it was Carl Jung who coined the
Hmm.
phrase collective unconscious.
Yeah.
Reverse speech taps into that inner knowing that, how can I explain it? Reverse speech describes a universal force called the whirlwind that surrounds the physical body and surrounds the planet. And if you can think of it like the internet, we are all connected through this invisible, unconscious network, just like the internet. And the internet exists because it's a reflection of what already exists on the unconscious level, anyway. And so, inside of this collective unconscious, through the process of reverse communication, oral tradition, we can tap into any knowledge or source that exists on the planet or indeed in the cosmos. And reverse beat gets into that type of stuff. Let me play you some examples.
Great.
Now I've just opened up a premonition file. Let me see if oh, here they are. Oh, I've got them all here. Gee, am I ever prepared? Let me play you a classic example of collective unconscious premonition.
Sure.
This is JFK giving his inaugural address in 1961. Okay.
Okay.
So here we go.
The slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world.
Backwards, he says, head is hitting the car.
Here's the kid in the car. Here's the kid in the car.
Well, you can obviously see the significance of that.
Right.
He foresaw his death.
Wow.
He shot to the head in his limousine. So that's a eerie premonition.
Absolutely. My goodness.
Where's another? Oh, here's one I found on a client 3 months prior to 911. Okay, so
That I said that I will be an opener of souls, and had the most incredible feeling of my heart chakra just bursting wide open.
this one says, "Soon plan evil on America."
Round able out America. Round able out America. Round able out America.
Well, this guy had never been to America. He's Australian, as you can tell. Had no contact with America at all. And I found that reverse. And I go, what on earth is this all about? But so I saved it because I thought, oh, it might be significant. And of course, 3 months later, we all know what happened in 911, and I remember this reverse. And I go, oh my, that's quite amazing. Excuse me, I have a cat who's been very persistent. I'm a cat man. I have 5 cats actually.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. Here's a reversal that really opened my eyes about premonitions or collective unconscious knowledge. This is me actually, and I'm on a radio show. I'm in London, and I'm doing a radio show. So here's the forwards.
The most powerful way, because you can hear it in straightforward everyday English. But yeah, we are hardwired to tell the truth.
Yeah, we are hardwired to tell the truth. And backwards, bizarre reversal, and I'll tell you the significance of it in a sec. It says on the highway or on a highway. It's either the or a, I can't remember now. On a highway, there's a chill here.
On the highway, chill here. On the highway, chill here.
Okay, so I found that. Well, actually, I didn't find it. Someone did the reversals on my radio show, and they sent me this reversal. They said, "You know what that means, David?" I said, "No, I have no idea." Anyway, 2 weeks later, I'm in America, and I'm flying to see a mate of mine in southern Oregon, and the plane's flying into the Bend local airport. Anyway, it gets to Bend, and it's snowing. It can't land, so it's got to go back to Portland. So I think, well, how am I going to get to meet my mate? So I went and hired a four-wheel drive and I started driving. Well, I'm an Australian. We drive on the wrong side of the road. We don't have snow. So I'm driving along the wrong side of the road and it starts snowing. And it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And before too long, I'm driving in a raging blizzard. I'm down to 5 miles an hour. When I get to my mate's house, it's absolutely freezing. It's 3 feet of snow. So that reversal on a highway, there's a chill here, was a premonition to an event that was going to happen to me 2 weeks later. So,
Wow.
yeah, I've got just so many of these.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Here's an interesting one. This is Hillary Clinton on the campaign trail.
Know about you, but I don't think we have a person to waste. We want to build an America where everyone has a place, where if you work hard and you do your part, you can get ahead and stay ahead. That's the basic bargain of America.
Okay, now this is before she lost the election, right? So she's on the
Okay.
campaign. And backwards she says, I wish I won.
I wish I won.
Oh,
I
geez.
wish I won. I wish I won.
So she's talking about that. She's talking about her defeat in present tense before before she lost.
Wow.
Yeah, this stuff is wild sometimes, I tell you. It really is.
It definitely is. And I think not only on an individual level, but on a bigger level with public figures and stuff, I think this is a beautiful way to kind of cut through the words that they're trying to say and get to the point of what they're actually saying, which I think is helpful.
Well, I had a lot of fun on this election. I was all over this election with Trump.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, your YouTube videos are very entertaining in that regard. And given all your experience with all of this, has working through reverse speech sort of changed your view of how the world works or how we work as humans? I'm sure
yes.
it's had to drastically.
Yes. Drastically. Yes. Drastically. Where do I even begin?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know that's a big subject, so perhaps what's kind of the biggest revelation that you've had over the years of doing this, just with respect to what
I think that we
create
the world in which we live,
Mm-hmm.
that everything that happens to us is because we create it. I see that in people's reversals, like the reversal I played you on a highway. There's a chill here. I see people's reversals 2 or 3 weeks before an event, talk about an event, and then the event happens. And I didn't know whether it was premonition or whether we're manifesting. I think it's a combination of both. I think that we totally do create. Reverse speech says that we create through the whirlwind. Talks a lot about the whirlwind. It's a very common metaphor. Gee, this gets into deep reverse speech theory. We create with the metaphor sound. Reverse talks a lot about sound. Like at reversal, see the sound in the air around. See the sound that I sent. It's an energy that we're putting out into the whirlwind that connects to other whirlwinds, and somehow this giant link, this unconscious communication link, orchestrates events in our life and in politics and in the world, and we are all creating it. The collective consciousness of humanity is creating all of this.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. We are a product of us, and if we want to change the world in which we live, we have to change us, because that world is a reflection of who we are, collectively as well as individually. So that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned. Yes.
No, and that's brilliant, David, because personally, what I've been telling folks for a long time now, but especially sort of in this post-pandemic world, is we kind of have to sort ourselves out first so that we can create good in the world with our families, our communities, and society, and not wait for something magical outside of us to sort of solve all of our problems. And that's what I've been repeating over and over again, whether people listen.
That's my message too. So we're in the same boat there.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I love that.
I've another way it's changed me too. I've softened a real lot spiritually. I grew up in a Christian home. My dad's a minister. I was a minister's son. I had very mainstream, leaning fundamentalist Christian values when I started doing reverse speech. Reverse speech has really softened me a real lot. I've become a lot more accepting. I'm nowhere near as dogmatic as I was before. I don't know. don't know. That gets into my own spiritual beliefs, so we won't go there. So,
Well, yeah, I think that that is, if you don't mind, kind of teasing that out a little bit, because right now we live in an uncertain time. And
yeah,
what I see when we live in uncertain times, people gravitate towards tradition for better or worse. And just with your work in reverse speech, being able to see perhaps common threads and realities that aren't necessarily apparent to most people, especially in
yeah.
the last couple of years, maybe that's helpful for folks to discuss that a little bit more.
Oh, dear me. Oh, okay. Um, where do I start on that one? Wow. Um, oh, what have I learned? I've learned to get into my own belief system, and God is very, very real.
Hmm.
He doesn't live on a throne up in the sky. He lives inside of us.
Hmm.
Uh, reverse speech has told me that we are God. We are divine. There's a phrase in reverse speech that says, I am. And
Hmm.
it's a declaration of I am God. I am divine. Let me play one of them. I actually think I've made a file up for I. Oh, hang on. No, it'll gonna be here. 1 second. Um, and we can all tap into our own divinity. Here's one. Okay, this is uses the phrase "I am," which means I am God.
She couldn't really and didn't want to half the time um, take control of herself. If I wasn't there when I was there, she would just.
Okay, I am, comma, the soul wealthy.
I am the wealthy.
I am the wealthy. I am the wealthy.
We can attain that state as humans. We can attain that state of having a healthy soul,
Hmm.
of being aware of our own divinity. That is our destiny as a race. I believe that we are destined to rediscover that we are divine, to rediscover that God lives inside of us. That is part of the mission of reverse speech, I believe. He's
Hmm.
not out there, he's in there. And we can all find that power inside of us. We can get a hold of our creation processes. Um, uh, reverse speech doesn't say Jesus is the only way to heaven. I found some wonderfully, very whole spiritual people who are Hindu, Buddhist.
Hmm.
Um, there's many ways to find God, um, but He lives in the heart, and the light of God lives in the heart. I don't know. Is that the sort of thing you're asking for?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a hard thing to discern, with our own minds sometimes, these
Yes, it
conversations,
is.
but with reverse speech, I think we just cut to what our souls are saying.
That's exactly right.
And there's
Yes,
no, we're not sort of guarding our words. We're not sort of trying to say things to appease people. This is literally from the heart and soul of us communicating
yeah,
to each other. So these answers are beautiful, and thank you very much
yeah.
for sharing.
Yeah, let me play you a reversal that tells you a couple of them actually.
Sure.
That tell you what is speaking in reverse. Here we have this one here. This is me on a radio show.
Okay.
But sometimes people ask me, does reverse speech endorse any particular religion? And the answer to that is no. There are no deities or religions that reverse speech endorses or says this is right or this is wrong. It just talks about the soul and the endlessness of life. And that in itself is very powerful.
And backwards, it's the voice in heaven.
It's the voice in heaven.
Hmm.
It's the voice in heaven.
That's where reverse speech is coming from. Heaven inside of us. It's the soul, the heart. I used the unconscious mind for the 30 years of my career, and I've only just started dropping in soul and heart voice the last few years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a topic as practitioners we've perhaps danced around a little bit in the past. I don't think that time is there anymore. And I think just traditional science, if you will, is confronting a real problem because they're trying to talk about consciousness and all these other things without acknowledging that there is a soul, without
Right,
acknowledging that God exists. And so
right.
with this, we can just cut through all the baloney and just say, here, this is what it is. And this is why I think it's so powerful and amazing.
I believe reverse speech offers a tangible proof of the existence of the human soul and of God. I believe it's one of the most tangible proofs that we have currently, quite frankly. Personally, that's what I believe.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, David. And I want to be very respectful of your time. I know you're on a little bit of a tight timeline today. Before you go, where can people find out about reverse speech? Where can they listen to it? And where can they learn more? I know you do courses and things like
Yes,
that, so people
yes,
can study it
yes.
on their own.
Okay, well, my website is
Mhm,
reversespeech.com,
mhm,
but that hasn't been updated for quite some time. But all the theories in there, there's a lot of articles in there. You can read it all, reversespeech.com.
mhm.
For all my latest reversals, you need to go to my YouTube channel, David Oates. I think you just search for David Oates, you'll find me, I
Yeah,
believe.
and I'll put a link in the show notes for
Oh,
everybody
okay, thank
so
you.
they can
Yeah.
find you.
I've written 20 books so far. You can go into all of them on Amazon. Just
Mhm,
search David Oates. There's well, most of them are about reverse speech, but there's a couple of books on spirituality. One book called The Lessons of Love, which is not necessarily about reverse speech, just what reverse speech has taught me, really. There's a science fiction trilogy. I'm a sci-fi writer, so
mhm.
reverse speech features strongly in my sci-fi writing. So, I get all them on Amazon. My email address is backwards, BACKWARDS at reversespeech.com. I have a class starting the last week of January. It's
Okay.
conducted in Zoom, 3-hour classes every 2 weeks for a year. A lot of homework to do though.
Mhm.
Class is just a start. You got to do a lot of work. It's tough work, so
Right
be
on.
prepared. But look, there's only about a half a dozen practitioners in the whole world, which
Mhm,
so come and join. It's an amazing technology. I believe it will change the world in time.
mhm.
Um, I believe it will.
Yeah,
Hope I see it.
I hope you see it too, David. And I think as I've gone through my own experiences, I've been blessed with encountering very, very smart people who are ahead of their time. And, when you're on the bleeding edge of things and you're sort of trying to push humanity forward, I recognize it's not always comfortable and it's not always fun and it's not always a good time. But you do it
No,
because it's important and you see the value in it. And I just appreciate that very much.
well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.